The Transmission Company of Nigeria manages the electricity transmission network in the country, and it's fully owned and operated by the federal government. As part of the reform program of the government, it is reorganized and restructured to improve its reliability and expand its capacity to transmit the electricity to distribution companies. My guest this week is from the Transmission Company of Nigeria. Hello there, welcome to Dateline Abuja. I'm Gloria Umezuke. The Abuja Environmental Protection Board carried out several raids on some nightclubs within the nation's capital. Well, that has generated several reactions, and the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory says the plan is to maintain sanity. In our interview this week, we'll look at improvements in the transmission component of the nation's electricity sector. But first, what are the stories that made headlines within the week in the nation's capital?
Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo presided over an extraordinary session of the Federal Executive Council meeting. The Minister of Budget and National Planning, Senator Udo Udoma, briefed the meeting on the first quarter gross domestic product performance, according to the numbers released by the National Bureau of Statistics.
This is the strongest first quarter performance since 2015. And the Federal Executive Council is most encouraged by the fact that growth continues to be driven by the non-oil sector. The nation should therefore expect a faster growth rate as the incoming cabinet continues to intensify work on the implementation of the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan.
The federal government has released the details of the presidential inauguration ceremony and the Democracy Day ceremony. The Minister of Information, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, read the details and assured foreign dignitaries of safety during both ceremonies.
The swearing of the President and the Vice President is slated for Wednesday, May 29th at the Eagle Square, to be followed by a state banquet at the State House in the evening of the same day. The event celebrating the June 12th as Democracy Day will kick off on Friday, June 7th.
President Muhammadu Buhari has returned to Abuja from Saudi Arabia after performing lesser Hajj rites in Mecca. Upon arrival, the president was received by his Chief of Staff, Alhaji Abba Kyari, the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Malam Mohammed Bello, Inspector General of Police, Mr. Mohammed Adamu, and other government functionaries. The Minister of Health, Professor Isaac Adewale, says the problem with the nation's tertiary health institutions is overcrowding, not poor quality of health care. The minister made the disclosure when he appeared before the Senate in plenary.
For them to function effectively, Your Excellency, distinguished senators, they depend on functional primary care centers and functional secondary care centers.
The House of Representatives has passed a legislation abolishing and prohibiting discrimination between first-degree holders and higher national diploma holders in the same profession. The legislation passed through second reading in April 2017. It seeks to end discrimination against polytechnic graduates and remove the challenges being faced by HND holders, especially those in the public service.
Let him bring it now.
The Monetary Policy Committee has asked the federal government to provide a mechanism for restructuring deposit money banks' access to government securities. Addressing a news conference after the committee's meeting, the Central Bank Governor, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, explained that it will redirect banks' lending to private sector, which in the long run will spur economic growth.
In view of the abundant opportunities available to banks for unfettered access to government securities, which tend to crowd out private sector lending, the committee called on management to provide a mechanism for limiting deposit money banks' access to government securities so as to redirect banks' lending to to bank lending focus to the private sector, noting that this will spur the badly needed growth in the Nigerian economy.
President Muhammadu Buhari has asked all ministers to continue in office until the 28th of May 2019, after which they would hand over their schedules to the permanent secretaries of their respective ministries. The president said this during the valedictory session of the Federal Executive Council.
Although today is our last council meeting, I expect all of you to continue working until Tuesday, the 28th May 2019, when you will officially hand over your schedules to your respective permanent secretaries. Your handing over letter should be submitted to the office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation.
The Acting Inspector General of Police, Mr. Adamu Mohammed, has been confirmed by the Police Council as the new Inspector General of Police. His confirmation was announced at the Police Council meeting, which was presided over by President Muhammadu Buhari. The Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, is asking governors not to stoke fires of ethnicity and religious conflicts through their unguided utterances. He said this at the valedictory meeting of the National Economic Council.
Frequently, our political elite, sometimes out of advancing political agendas or simply seeking relevance, recklessly stoke the fires of ethnicity and religious conflict. I think we must, as leaders, who have a duty to keep the peace and welfare of our state.
Governor Kayode Fayemi of Ekiti State has been chosen by consensus as the chairman of the Nigeria Governors Forum. He succeeds Governor Abdulaziz Yari of Zamfara State. Governor Aminu Tambuwal of Sokoto was also chosen as vice chairman of the group.
We will build on his commitment to a strong partnership with the federal government as federating units and trash out issues as amicably as possible in the overall interest of our country. This is something that all parties of different persuasion have done. And as you can see, the leadership is comprising of both myself from the majority and the ruling party and Governor Aminu Tambuwal from the People's Democratic Party.
The Supreme Court has nullified the elections of all the candidates of the All Progressives Congress in Zamfara State in the 2019 general elections. The five-man panel led by the Acting Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Ibrahim Mohammed, declared the first runners-up in the elections in the state as the winners of all the positions earlier declared to have been won by the APC candidates. And finally, all is now set for the inauguration of President Muhammadu Buhari on Wednesday, the 29th of May 2019, as the Presidential Inauguration Committee okays all arrangements, including security preparations for the ceremony. The Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. Boss Mustafa, led the committee on an inspection tour of the Eagle Square, venue of the ceremony.
We'll be on the alert. We have a security committee that is taking care of that. We'll maintain adequate vigil to ensure that nothing unwarranted happens, and I can assure you that we are on top of the game. We don't expect anything. Nigerians are quite excited about the leadership of President Muhammadu Buhari, so nobody will go out of his way to create any problem that we do not envisage.